Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us, especially through the trenches of the Uber routes here. But I was telling my friends that I came with who have never been to Sundance until now that it's not really Sundance until there's some snow and some slush and some steep hikes. So thank you for joining us. So just a really quick background on me. Melissa June Rowley. I have a communications and impact firm and production company called Warrior Love Productions. And as Kwasi mentioned, I'm also a columnist for Rolling Stone and for Reuters. I love storytelling. It's basically the only thing I know how to do professionally, or maybe I should say it's the root of what I do. And this panel of creatives and creators came together very quickly in just a couple weeks because they're so collaborative and ready to share what they're doing. Which some of you may be very aware, there's this beautiful nexus burgeoning at the intersection of climate and impact and storytelling, particularly in film. So that's why I said to Kwasi, are you doing anything on storytelling and climate and impact? He said, no, why don't you just put something together? So here we are, and we're gonna dive into some questions about climate impact filming, where it is, where it's going, how we can navigate, thank you, misinformation, disinformation, which there's been plenty of, especially the last couple of weeks. So why don't I'm going to start with, well, first let me introduce everybody. Sarah Mosses with Together Films. Heather Phipps, co-founder of the Hollywood Climate Summit, and she's also with the Redford Center. Carmiel Banaski, she is screenwriter, VP of editorial at Good Energy, which she'll talk more about. Juliette Ritchie, COO of Picture Motion, and Ramphis Myrtle, filmmaker, entrepreneur, Renaissance man. Ramphis, since you just had the premiere of your film Ricky last night, which I didn't get to see, but I saw an amazing headline review from Variety magazine, I would love you to kick off our first question or our first response. So with anything dealing with social issues, social commentary, climate, racism, LGBTQ issues, it's striking a balance with making things compelling yet fact-based and educational can be tricky to navigate sometimes. How do you do that in your filmmaking? Because Ricky's not your only film. You've also had some other films that have done quite well and won awards. How do you approach that as a producer, director, writer?
Okay, got it. Hello, everyone. Really good question, actually. For me, it's all about connecting with an authentic story that's real. So Cicada is one of the films I've produced as well that was really successful. It's based on a bisexual male that gets involved in an interracial relationship during the Sandusky trial. So it deals with sexual abuse and trauma. And the filmmaker, he never had closure with his abuser, and that was why he was telling this story. And the story also focuses around a young man that he meets, and right before we went into production, I was telling Juliette on the ride here, Selden, the co-star, was leaving like a party, and he kissed another man, and I guess someone saw it, and the car pulled up next to him and asked for directions, and they literally shot Sheldon because he kissed another man, you know? And the script was written a certain way, and because this happened, we asked Sheldon to incorporate his story, you know, which really enhanced it. So when we were filming, it was like a mess every day. You know, like Matt was reliving the trauma he went through, and Sheldon had just got shot like a couple of months ago, you know, and there was a whole conversation about, you know, should we recast Sheldon, you know, because we have to shoot this film, or do we keep him? It was a very difficult decision, but it was the best thing, and I think the right thing to actually do. And I think it was healing for the both of them. We went through so many ups and downs and trials and tribulations, and I want to say that we had this screening at NYU, and I remember at the end of the Q&A, this man came up and started talking to Matt, and he was just saying that this is my story. I went through the challenges as you went through, and it just really resonated with me. Thank you for telling this story. And I'm like, oh my God, we did our job. You know, someone we didn't know at all coming up, and just like the journey with this, you know, like we're a small team, a small film. Like my producing partner was 21 out of NYU. You know, I think I was the oldest one on the team, and we made so many errors and mistakes. but the film just really resonated with folks and people to the extent where, during COVID, everything got shut down. We weren't able to screen the film anywhere because everything was virtual, and we had to have a come to Jesus moment with our, sales rep, where we decided to do the whole virtual thing. And what ended up happening was that it really kind of hit. And we ended up playing at the BFI London Film Festival in 2020, and we were aligned with 10 other American films: Nomadland, Summer, One Night in Miami, and Soul, all films that won Academy Awards. So I got a call from Jessica Chastain's manager and Will Ferrell's manager. I'm like, how the hell did you get my number, And they figured the film played at Sundance. That film didn't play at the Sundance Film Festival, but it really resonated with them, and I started getting calls from buyers, and then we had like a bidding war on this movie, and we got our North American rights sold. We went theatrical, and then I get this like message from Matt where Regina Hall and I forget what Kate. I was telling you earlier. I don't know if it was Kate Winslet, one of the Kates, nominated the film for an Independent Spirit Award, and we're like, how did this happen, And over the next few months, I remember we were trying to do a release in the European market, and Omicron came, and everything kind of like slowed down. We had sold the film in different territories, in Germany, in France, Portugal, the UK, and like in a matter of 2 days, there was a whole campaign where we had to fly out to Germany and just tour with the film. And I remember going to, it wasn't Warsaw, we were in Poland. There was a little town that we went to. I can't remember the name of the town that we went to. But anyway, the whole point is that we went there, and on a Monday night, it was packed. And, Warsaw is not the most, Poland's not the most friendliness when it comes to queer cinema. So, I'd asked a lot of the people that lived in the area, like, hey, you guys came out, and like, how do you deal with the shit that you go through? And, and they said that they were like fighters, and they were so excited that we were there, like on this random Monday in the code, and we just had like a sold out crowd. And it was just so well received, and I'm like, oh my God, like we're living our purpose, we're doing the right thing. And at one point I was thinking of not even going, because it came together so last minute, like to fly out there and figure everything out. And Matt felt like this really helped him heal, through the process. And I felt like we did the authentic thing. Like we told two real stories, and the film went the distance. And the same thing with Ricky. Ricky was a short film that we shot in 2021. It was supported by Spike Lee and Cary Fukunaga. And we shot it late November of 21. And obviously there's always challenges with making a movie. And it was inspired, by this young man, actually. This is off the record, so no one film or anything. But it was, inspired about this guy, actually, that at 15 years old, he was hit for a crime. Basically what happened was that this young man had ran away from home, and these people took him in, and they were really kind to him. They fed him, they housed him and everything. And he was like ready to go home one day, and they're like, well, you got to put in work. And he's like, well, what work, that I got to put in? They told him to rob a gas station. And he's like, I'm not going to rob no gas station. And the guy was like, well, if you don't rob this gas station, I'm going to fucking kill you. So, he was forced in a situation he didn't want to do. He went to the gas station to rob the gas station, and then like he had to come to Jesus moment with the gun out, and the guy behind the register knocked him out and called the police, and and the police were taking him in. He's like, yo, I think this is a kid, and he was tried as an adult for this crime, and he went away for 15 years, and ever since then he just wasn't like right, So our writer director had seen a lot of these things happen in his community. He had heard about the story. My team and I actually tried to get a hold of the actual person and bring him on as a consultant, and have him be a part of the process and teach. And things got weird with his lawyers, and, that's a whole other story. But that's how the story kind of came, and we wrote based on that experience. And that film premiered at Sundance 2 years ago. Quasi was there, he was at our house, and we had a cool party. And then the film later got nominated for an Academy Award. Christy's actually wearing the shirt, Academy Award shirt. But yeah, we went the distance, and then the film came alive, and we got calls from random people that wanted to finance the movie, and came together really quick. We tried to shoot in 23, but the strikes happened, and we shot the film in July, and we're at Sundance, and the film's about to sell. So that is why I choose those specific stories. They resonate, they're true stories, and I feel that we're adding value to people's lives,
Non-actors in the film too, right?
Yeah, so in the film also, Juliet was at our premiere yesterday. 1,800 people came out, sold out. No one could get a ticket to this thing. And we used, real life. The story about Ricky is pretty much about an offender, coming home, trying to do the right thing, and things just go horribly wrong. So in the film, we actually, used real, people that were offenders, and we hired them, and they got to do a commentary as well. So I feel like we added value, and they were able to use their voices, and feel heard.
I'll probably just, can you all hear me if I just project? Yeah. I'll use the mic for the, oh, okay, all right. Damn. All right, I was trying to be quick about things. Thank you, Rampus. That's, incredible stories just of how you've been able to execute, and like you said, the resonance and what has attracted people. Juliet, you are the CEO of Picture Motion, which creates social action campaigns for films. But I feel like to leave it at that, I would almost be reductive, because I think you do so much more than that. For people in the audience who don't know, can you share some background in Picture Motion? And what I'd like to know is, how do you determine what films you're going to represent? Because there's so much out there, right?
Thank you for the question. Yes, hi, I'm Juliet. And as you said, Picture Motion is a cause marketing agency. We work with independent filmmakers, we work with production companies and distributors. We've worked with Rampus before. And we have a really amazing framework and model that works kind of across the spectrum of those, that field. We come on to support from a strategy and partnership standpoint. We have a really robust network of NGOs, nonprofits, leaders in community organizations, and then we have about 50,000 grassroots, just entertainment leaders in spaces across the US who love this film and storytelling. And so we've been a company for a little over 12 years. I've been with the company for about 5 years. And to your question about sort of how we pick projects, I think I was really moved by what you said. I think it's really similar to what you were sort of talking about. Stories that have this deep human connection, I think, are ones that we gravitate towards. The audiences that we work for or work with gravitate towards. And it's sort of, as long as there's that human connection story, it doesn't necessarily matter what the other underlying themes are, whether it's about reproductive rights or anti-recidivism or climate storytelling. I think that we as an organization have kind of worked across all of those, that spectrum of themes. And we're not an expert in every one of those themes, but we really, in the last 12 years, have built a huge collaboration with tons of experts in and across all of those fields. We've worked, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about climate storytelling in this panel. We've worked on biodocs like the Greta Thunberg documentary. We've worked with nonprofits like this Story of Stuff, who did a documentary called The Story of Plastic about single-use plastic. And so there's been a kind of a wide spectrum of the type of work that we do. National Geographic is a great client of ours, and what's amazing about the filmmaking that comes out of both the nonprofit side of National Geographic and the marketing side is that you're going to be taken on an adventure. It's likely going to be educational. And our educator network really loves to program films like that in classrooms. I think for the most part, we really get the opportunity to take these films when they're ready to be publicly consumed and support the more traditional marketing side of things, and support it from a social impact or grassroots standpoint. So whether we're activating those 50,000 grassroots hosts and doing kind of an alternative distribution screening tour, or we're doing impact events just like this, I think we kind of have like a broad sort of spectrum of services and work across so many different types of stories. But it's that human connection, I think, that is most important, because regardless of an audience's lived experience, I think there's sort of a universal human connection that we all want to have with each other. And so if they are seeing a film and learning about individuals or organizations for the first time, we also try to include within our campaigns educational resources and materials for folks to not only maybe be inspired by a film, but kind of give them sort of the next step, like what's the next action they could take. And maybe it's learning more or volunteering and wanting to do something more after they've been inspired by the film.
Thank you, Juliet. So we only have about 5 minutes left, and I normally like to guide conversations to be more dialogue conversation, but I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to share their project. So I'm going to go with you, Sarah. I also know you're on a time limit. So could you please talk about Together Films and what your focus is, and also talk about the climate action initiative that you just launched?
Hi everyone, so I'm Sarah. I live in London and split my time between the UK and US. So Together Films is both a sales agency and impact cause marketing firm. We collaborate with Picture Motion on certain titles and have a similar kind of ethos of human-centered storytelling. And we have a sales agency that specifically focuses on social justice titles. So we're the only agent on the market right now that only has a slate of films that are trying to do good in the world, and we're very proud of that fact. Thank you very much. We take those difficult films that others might want. We also have a clause in our contracts that say that we will advocate for the social justice sort of prerogative of the producers. So if you're hoping to do an educational tour, if you want to go into prisons, if you want to go into educational spaces, we will sort of fight for that with the distributors who are buying your film to ensure that you have the full access that you're hoping for. A lot of our work is funded by philanthropists and foundations who care about those particular issues. And a few years ago, we got a multi-year grant from a climate funder to support a lot of our work in the climate space. And we have clients like Patagonia, who've done 3 projects with them on climate stories. Greenpeace is one of our clients on their filmmaking projects. And last year, we wanted to launch a fund initiative to help these stories sort of go further. So Climate Action Together is the first fund that Together Films have launched. We're currently raising a new fund that will be closing this year. And the initiative had 3 different elements to it. So we gave a cash grant to 2 different projects, specifically towards their impact objectives. So it wasn't film financing, it was impact campaign financing. So you got a cash grant for each project. We then had a 4-month kind of accelerator program with them. So we called it a film funder and accelerator. During these 4 months, we were looking at their impact strategy design, what their partnership structure would be, helping them think about distribution options, funding options, marketing, posters, key art, trailers, basically setting up these films for success when they come out in the marketplace. And then once they launch their campaigns, I then mentor them on a monthly basis to ensure they're hitting the objectives that they've laid out. And this has been a really successful project. It's the first time that we've done it. Impact funding in the European landscape is very far and few between. There are not many impact funders in that region, so we're one of the first kind of impact funders kind of in the area. And it was really important to kind of balance the cash kind of financial contributions alongside the strategy to kind of ensure these films will have success. So just after we gave the grant to one of our projects on Earth, Aaron Brockovich came on as the EP of that project to help amplify the reach of that film. The other title, which is a UK project called Power Station, about localized energy resource structures, is building up incredible sponsorships and kind of funding from UK partners to release that, to potentially turn every street in the UK into a local power station. It's a sort of like ethos of that campaign. And in a moment of an energy crisis with rising costs, it is kind of crucial to have stories like this out in the marketplace. So that particular fund was focused on what we called climate solutions to the climate crisis. We have a lot of negative and sort of really depressing films about climate around the world. And so we were really actively looking for solution-led stories. And Power Station is absolutely an articulation of that. The filmmakers themselves go door to door across their neighborhood to encourage their entire street to become a kind of self-power station within it. So as we continue with the new fund that we're raising at the moment, we're really always looking looking at solutions-led kind of projects and narratives, and making sure that every film that comes out with this mentorship, the support from our team, and really comes to like practical, tangible change that can happen kind of out in the world. So that's a little bit about us. We also have a film here premiering on Monday called Life After by Reed Davenport. He won the Directing Award at Sundance in 2022, and this is his follow-up film, more about disability rights and activism. And as per Picture Motion and their team, we sort of have a number of different issues that we kind of focus on. So yeah, excited for new films in 2025.
Yeah, amazing. So you're a little busy. You're doing so much. I'm so glad you slid into my DMs when I put a call out asking for people attending Sundance that were funding films. So I know we don't have that much time, but I really want Heather and Carmiel to be able to get a chance to speak. Did anybody here go to the Earth Lounge at Impact Lounge the other day? Right? And so you're familiar with Hollywood Climate Summit. I'm such a fan of Heather's and her co-founders, Ali Weinstein and Allison Biegelman, just their way of bringing together grassroots activists, big studios, filmmakers, brands, everybody, and just creating this beautiful ecosystem. So Heather, can you talk a little bit about that and just share how bringing and curating these different groups and bringing them together has impacted filmmakers that you've collaborated with?
Thanks. Yeah. Hi, everyone. You know, I think that when we look at climate, I really liken it to what it takes to put together a film, to be honest. It's working towards a vision. It seems impossible to solve at first. It's starting with nothing and turning it into something. And it takes a lot of multidisciplinary skill sets, fundraising, creative thinking, marketing, to really reach people and have a product at the end of it. And so the reason why we started the Hollywood Climate Summit is simply that. It's radical collaboration at scale. It's very important that it's multidisciplinary and cross-sector, because I've worked in a lot of spaces. I've been in climate spaces, environmental spaces, brands, film development, and everyone is asking, what can we do about climate? What are we doing about sustainability, and how do we reach people? But those sectors are often not talking with one another about how they're collaborating together to braid those efforts. And so, yes, the Hollywood Climate Summit is really that. We have NGOs, we've had government, the Secretary of Energy came and met with climate content creators and social media creators. One of the things that I think is been really wonderful is just the reciprocity that has happened from having so many different types of people come together and think about how are we telling the story of climate, and that has looked like comedy. It's looked like we made a comedic investigative journalism stage production that like looked into fossil fuel politics, and we have had climate data presentations, and we've paired them with comedians to riff with them, and that organization, Probable Futures, took that on tour, and it's now a road show. So I think like when you think about how we're communicating climate, if you bridge that with the opportunity that entertainment has, like we create live spaces and ways to get people's attention. That's our superpower, right? And there's a lot of different ways that I think, specifically in the climate conversation, we need to be thinking more about how are we getting people's attention and how are we shifting our values, and hearing from the right folks doing that in various ways. We've had speakers from Everything Everywhere All at Once, Sex Lives of College Girls, and you wouldn't think that those have climate themes in them, but they very much do, and the creators are thinking about that, and it comes through in their work, and it's really cool to see into their perspective. And so our conference is every year. It is June 2nd through 4th this year at the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. They're our partner in putting it on. We also do touring events, and so Sundance Film Festival was our first Earth Lounge in collaboration with a lot of very wonderful folks. And we did a New York Climate Week event that Al Gore came to and spoke. So we started as a very grassroots effort, climate activists in the entertainment space, and it's been met with a resounding yes. So that's what's been exciting. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Okay, Carmiel, I'm just going to have you go. Everybody, Carmiel works with Good Energy. She's multifaceted. Take a look at those pamphlets on the table, and I'll let her tell more.
Hi, Hi, yes. Good Energy is a story consultancy for the age of climate change. So we produce resources like the playbook for screenwriting in the age of climate change. We give workshops. We work with studios across their slates to integrate climate into any and every genre. And we think about climate as a generative lens. So it is not preachy. It is not all doom and gloom. You start where you are. So from whatever issue you're already writing about, if you're writing a screenplay about immigration or racial justice, it is not separate from climate. If you are interested in mental health, it is not separate from climate. And so we work with writers to bring climate authentically into their stories. Like every character is facing the climate crisis in one way or another. So we give writers tools like climate spectrum. You can enter it through in the background of your stories all the way to a climate-driven plot. So I want to be quick, and now I feel. But please come talk to me about it after. Climate should be part of every single story. It doesn't have to be about climate to integrate climate. We've kind of run out of time. You know, every story should be an impact story. So. Please check out the playbooks. These are just an excerpt from the huge resource online. So.
Thank you to my panelists. Thank you guys so much for making it here. Thank you, everybody. And I think we've got some more programming coming up.